Hello, America, world, humanity. Again, if you follow my videos, we are a species volume science, individual group difference slash S, and species volume slash S. Where and how there is the identity that has quality aspects and natures between different species. That shows us the scientific value of the discernment as the discernment of a hyper additional nature of simultaneous nature as a scientific value, as is also discernible per why and how there are more than one name for a verb. Because we are appreciating with the invisible is simultaneously the hyper invisible but still discernible. Not just the invisible but still discernible comes with the physical but still discernible. And English and ancient sciences have this shared identity. And they were revealed the languages to teach about it. The sounds have a better than living identity of relationship to themselves. Anything, even if you make anything up, it has one way how it is three ways, and another way how it is five ways grouped. The identity of the hyper simultaneous, therefore of the hyper relativity. It's an identity of hyper relativity slash relativity. And we could discern, it shows us, means to appreciation of bliss, for example, the value of the identity of the simultaneous slash hyper simultaneous, and the identity of the smallest finite details, the order of the finite, in ways that modern names A through Z. And further, how simultaneously, as identities, as 15 distinct identities of the ground locations, before our founders were born, maintained collusions, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, entrenched, torture, extortion, slavery method, three ways manifest simultaneously relative to how this is simultaneously three ways and five ways grouped as its complete identity is, as the cells of your body are. I mean, reportedly, I haven't looked at human cells under the microscope. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall slash S. They come also with appreciation of gases and their mixture being positive or not. No, individually, we would consider oxygen positive and carbon gases negative, but it is their mixture. Note how our temperature that we feel comfortable at, right here on Earth, there is a part that is too hot and there's part that too cold. And we are in zero gravity, pretending, see, we have theory placed out of theory's bounds because of how a breaching method employed war. Because it employed worse. It employed names A through Z to blame other things, others, or selves, as those names too, as the species grouping names to force, trick, hurt, and persuade, and propagate without anyone realizing counters, blaming other things, others, or selves for what it caused, which is increasingly self-valued. The science is being and having been abridged in other pretended simultaneously. And that's styles of logic, natures of logic, forced by nature itself, the identity of nature itself. Nature is a word needed hyper additionally because, for example, that's for the same reason we need more than one word for a verb. This is why we have also in the phrase predicate act. I mean predicate, but that's one word. But for predicate act, this we can use the law is valuing distinctly predicate act in the word, but the word predicate, but also non-distinctly from English, how English is valuing the predicate. A predicate is something that can be a predicate act is something that can be used to discern the criminal insidiousness nature of act or person or group or influence. Note the phrase criminal foreign influence. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. There is Judge Napolitano, there's a Judging Freedom YouTube channel. There are police forms, and the differences of who's responsible for it is also being haven't been assigned because they have collusions with a whole bunch of other countries on and off the campuses, and they have roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that give them the benefit of the doubt, but they left out where and how. They haven't been honest about the extortion, torture, and slavery, fact-cheating nature of slavery. I'm going to add that part. But we're supposed to be honest about the fact-cheating nature extortion of George Washington, let alone of James Madison, and the difference of between him or George Washington as our founders. See the nature of debate, employed and maintains, subject treatments at all ages and natures of campuses. And this breaching method also propagated. It knew that nature would continually demonstrate to humanity a breaching method is a scientific value as well as the distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous, the need scientifically to discern that as one of the things being those things that are beyond ourselves while not, and how that can be used to show where and how it uses what is constant and what is variable, other than can be afforded discerned by the suits and ties counters and exceptions as a certain type of victim / hyper victim who had the short words, therefore their protraction replaced regarding what our founders communicated to us, which was other than what they said. Because there was a breaching method, we know, with laws entrenched and a method of measuring each individual group and voicing for humanity altogether to maintain collusions with uses of all words and values like unity and or independence. And speaking about or communicating about demonstrating exploitations of that would be sensed because that was made illegal. So if this breaching method measures and maintains other things, others, or selves, blamed for where and how it employed Jim Crow laws. Now, most Americans can discern this. And people that exploit that, they need to pretend that most Americans can't discern it, for example. So they need to pretend that they believe that voting means what it doesn't. So they need to self-value the phenomena of how countries individually grouped and together, they use words like democracy already, where and how they are measured and maintained and capable of speaking the words of the Constitution unabridged, of affording discernment of all the proofs of the rights we have and why we have the rights that are too numerous to list. Associated too, we have all the other amendments like gun rights. We have the people countering gun rights who are in collusions, also with victims of types of crimes, are in collusions with people where there are types of subject treatments and all research data, and names treatments and or timing treatments. Originally, still increasingly, the value of what came first is effectively being and having been employed by a breaching method that came from semi-ancient times, that came from before modern countries' religions messengers were even born. Already, the sciences had become tactically, criminally foreign influenced, delusions raw. That's one of the things our founders told us to demonstrate was forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, only allowed to be manifest, and others supposed to be pretended. And that includes a lot of people increasingly only capable of keeping blamed on other things, others, or selves, the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, even those so critical like slavery. And all this time, you guys have right through our schools the difference of the A through Z, a shell game, and the exceptions, people standing by as collusions, blaming other things, other ourselves, blaming our founders for slavery. Our founders communicated to us slavery had been entrenched already, sickly distinctly in northern colonies and southern colonies, of which there were more than 13. Also, the intelligence community has an extent of consciousness of where and how they forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded while being and having been used remotely through other countries and or themselves. The difference of that is remotely too. This breaching method was hyper sophistication here before our founders forced, tricked, and hurt. I mean, our founders had to take 13 counter positions inside the already sustained since before they were born roles with the negative value nature progression acts and natures blamed on other things, others, yourselves, as collusion slash S with this name and method. See, it keeps the overt criminal enterprises private ones. Insidiousness to the logic and nature of opinions common A through Z as collusions, pretending things are debatable that are not debatable, pretending sensibilities legitimate that are not legitimate. So, for example, then they want to have pretend who read what, leaving out what came first. James Madison, like regarding, they knew there was going to be that these people were on another continent. They're going to have independence. The breaching method had already made, there's good times and bad times. It has the difference of that too employed. This is using the sciences abridged, and we were told to get the sciences unabridged. We have this hyperscope black pupils. So Little Rap Guy and friends, the whole world is being forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to make movies and plays and such communications, to rewrite and show where and how employed our suits and ties, counters to it, and exceptions. Forgiveness is an important thing because there is a hyper foreign, overt criminal enterprises in private. They show the identities of the intelligence community and or the three branches of government, their lawyers, their family members. Overt criminal enterprises, same thing. Private ones, same thing. Regular civil and criminal cases, same thing. These are also people then further off the state corrections offices, off the state judicial branch offices. These are people where they're pretending offensively, motivations tied to how long it takes to train people and such. For example, where anyone who speaks, they get punished for it. Truth. Because, and one of the words. So Judge Napolitano, he has quality aspects in nature that are superior to many judges because he could stay calm. And because, but still, it only takes one judge to communicate for all of them. And then they'll deny that. See, each of the identities no, or pretend that's debatable. The reason they get away with this simultaneously is relative to how they've been stacking databases. One time I believe his name is I forgot his name. Was not in my grade. A Daryl Chandler. I don't know his sister's name. They're supposed to be an intelligence family, and they have rules with Koreans. And they have rules. One time, my neighbor, who's in one of the names involved, he got with a Phil Colol, who a Bob Chase with Whiting Forensics, through time is increasingly involved with people with wire crimes. And these are people with extended family members involved with the World Trade Center, the spots next to it, short term leading up to it, and long term, who have roles on off the state corrections office, on off the state judicial branch offices. And they have roles also with the intercampuses systems, even campuses they didn't go to, with the names like and fake motivations planting, where our founders left us to demonstrate where the entrance is to, and the state roles with the differences of the natures of employments and or of ground voicings, because we are also this per nature system, which is also increasingly relative per where and how nature has these means to demonstrate that. For example, one of the things that the laws of colonization and of early states were about and are about too, when they were pretend it's debatable what Jim Crow laws were about or are about. Nature gave us the means inherently, actively, and progressively to answer the questions what better than perfectly. What Jim Crow laws were about, that human factory nature breaching method, a hyper predicate acts with facts / predicate acts with facts delivery system method. That's what's recorded. If someone tries to deny this, as they've got how they get away with, is also recorded. They're going to have inherently active too and progressive, active group demonstrating and progressive to their logic demonstrations of the same thing. /s. Part of the reason we haven't discerned this is because the logic and reason experts that everyone's been reliant upon, ones with badges too, ones with foreign and domestic military, on off Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, and UConn, have roles of people named Violet. And there's a Judge Smith, and there are other judges. There are like 3 probate judges' families, who have roles of wire crime methods, and with their roles with FBI, state police through time. State police have a Whiting Forensics involved with a principal child defender, involved with FBI with more pictures of upskirt pictures on Twitter, and with the principal upskirt nature. They're also involved with other agencies with houses next to the schools, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, where and how again that is manifest as one of the things that sickly distinctly nature demonstrates this breaching method holds ourselves against ourselves. When I was a kid, three different intelligence families at 2 different occasions. One time, 2 O'Brien brothers, they attached to their confession. They put me they asked me to sit inside a car in their driveway, and so something to do with that driveway too, in that corner. Their worlds were corners of streets. All exception nature that appears to be a demonstration of other. They used it to hide which actually recorded, as the ones roles intercities and then interstates, also having been roles with predicate acts with facts on and off the campuses I went through from other classrooms. And the exceptions, the ones I did have classes with when I had them, that was also set up to exploit. These are people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, not legitimately. On a mass scale, people with words like addiction and alcoholism and things like that in their narratives. These are people putting fake conversations with people and fake evidences with courts and prosecutors and their family members, who are also in other agencies. So there was some probate. There's a probate judge related to or more related to a Del Farah family. And then there's one with the Spada family, and they reportedly had intimate ties with a whole bunch of other people. Like there's a guy, Chris White. I believe is his name. I don't know. They don't my name. I don't know their name. These are interagencies, inter Coast Guard, you know. And so, in other words, these are people who had intimate and other relations. And these, if you talk about that, these are people also simultaneously spreading lies and rumors, identity theft, frauds, and slanders, fake motivations planting, where they have foreign bodies involved. They have fake conversations with kids in databases over the phone as the intelligence community, so they can make it look like things are debatable that are not. They're discrediting good information. They make confessions non-verbally. They have teachers of other students that I never had who make confessions non-verbally, as the people increasingly from other areas involved planting evidences on my street. And now these are the ones with the Wethersfield police switching and forging names to make confessions about that. Because good people don't want to stay evil forever. This breaching method made good. So look why and how they got Jim Crow laws wrong, even though nature demonstrates it increasingly. Jim Crow laws are about the breaching method, the fact human nature. Only a sick fake. In other words, you guys have to value only fakes having spoken, pretending to speak for integrity of science anywhere. When you see New York City, when you see the height of those buildings, and what you guys call resources, you think nature wanted us to hunger so those people could go seek success? While across the suburbs were designed tactically denatured to force, trick, hurt, and persuade everyone to rely on systems, money systems, the breaching method put up for torture, extortion, slavery, evidence racketeering, data, research racketeering, worse than war crimes. Fear God. This effectively has people's self-value roles with uses of when they use words like genocide. This is not a legitimate argument. They want to have some punks in the background having other people's names blamed for their premises treatments. There's a group think lean, and there's maintenance to it that is way worse than groupthink. There is uses of the words radical, that is tactically delusions raw, criminally foreign influence. Can't afford to have discerned what nature shows, which is that even English is greater than, more finite than, is led by what is greater than, more finite than, an active relativity to difference, to logic, reason, math, in the ways these science experts can't afford to discern. Everyone spoke for value. Want to have like for example, with the treatments of the word policy, this breaching method measured and maintained the government and or the rest of the intelligence with them. See, the government has a whole bunch of different countries involved with them. People from Korea, Japan, Russia. There's a Russian kid that was in my 6th grade class who's involved with people increasingly tied to body dumping spots. And the people that were in the other classrooms who I never had classrooms down on my street, who I never had classrooms with. And people tied to them, I don't know their names at all. And the ones I do involved with sequence shifts, planting evidences with them, fake motivations, timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, increasingly their roles with spots next to Hartford Hospital and campuses intercities with the names next to them. They hide lipoaggressions, roles. All these countries are killing each other. They have roles with psychiatry while they're tactical black pupils. When did a identity of reason expert or law expert speak legitimately? Black pupils. When, of course, how did they get away with this? We have to appreciate that breaching method that had been sustained on people A through Z. And and it involves where and how the suburbs, design of the suburbs became manifest. You can't explain that without explaining what our founders and what, for example, Vladimir Putin was bringing up that for, because we have agreements. It's the same thing with Barack Obama. He already declassified. It's not classified this way. We know our countries are shared here. Now all we have to do is show how there's collusions with the breaching method. Forgiveness is to allow this to be demonstrated. See, we have everyone jumping into everyone else's conversations, and they're getting away with it per the database illusion stacking and or the exceptions, how the exceptions are involved. And how they have the names and the timing of what, in other words, they make confessions that we're not going to jump into it right there because there are foreign bodies involved. People with the name Mike DeMay and or not Mike DeMay, Mike DeMay too, but what's his name? Mike Pandol has roles with a whole bunch of people with the intelligence community at Trinity College, Central Connecticut State University, and UConn, who are involved planting evidences with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, fake motivations with foreign nations, and people involved with teachers I had who are involved with predicate acts with federal evidences crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and people and the different criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, roles used remotely criminally foreign influence names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. There is a Leahy family that pretended fake conversations with me about legal cases too, ones he was involved with the federal criminals in, including ones that are co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, in a 2006 district court case involved before that and since it with people who've been planting evidences on off campuses with all sides in foreign countries, overt criminal enterprises and private ones. They're not just undercover or whatever with the Harvard Hospital has an Institute of Living roles with different natures of police forms that use the difference of which ones too are responsible, where they have Wethersfield Police and other Connecticut police departments involved with the name Cololo and with the name DeMauro and their teachers. They have teachers they grew up with involved with mayors of from Wethersfield, also with medical offenders of kids, foreign and domestic, and their family members involved child abuse, also the roles with their kids and themselves abusing others' kids. This is also higher levels of politicians associated with the Mike DeMay and people on Fox Connecticut News. Increasingly, the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News has roles with various natures of organized crime and people involved with federal evidences crimes with judges, prosecutors, and their family members on and off campuses planting fake motivations too for their sensibility, which is as the ones timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones not legitimately, also with like acting professors. There are proofs that acting professors have roles with teaching people how to act and be, no, these are military people too. A whole bunch of military people associated with the name Oliveri and Stryker, and Olson. There's an Eric Olson, Matt. People named Olson at Trinity College. Sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. There are roles with a Joshua Stryker and with a Joshua Julian further with a principal child offenders campus. And they have some KKK black themed people on off Harvard Hospital who have been involved with the computers in the different departments and the Harvard Healthcare has roles with names, also with ties to Gary Sasso, and people increasingly at Whiting Forensics have roles with body dumping spots and various cases that went before them since before that, the people next to those body dumping spots had roles with were easily discernible remote uses of names associated with what I caught that as actually recorded on off the state corrections offices, on off the state judicial branch offices of Connecticut, as people involved with the World Trade Center, which has roles, for example, with trade agreements and language that left out exceptions in exception nature, as nature demonstrates us to use it. And so, black pupils, we have the unfortunate means and obligation to to force mandated law that appreciates how we have appreciates how this hurts us all sickly distinctly too. That's why we're going to look at the ground how simultaneously no one ever brought up what to do about that. Just go why what part of the ground is most tactically denatured. Nothing. The suburbs were designed again from here to Russia, from America to Russia to Ukraine. The suburbs look almost exactly alike because they were designed before our founders were born. Tactically denatured to be a landscape theater, mow the lawn every year more and more. The worms are going away. They have no food. How you doing? Sports. So in other words, but this video, if you watch the videos of Judge Napolitano, Judge Knapp, Judging Freedom YouTube channel, he has all there are wars reportedly going on in the world today. I use the word reportedly because that's the only way to stop it. See, there are laws that demand that we're not supposed to use other people's reporting. And the alternative is relative to where and how it's recorded. The excuse of people saying, oh, well, come over here to see or go over there is used to measure and maintain. Then they want to have nature debate about that. It's used to measure and maintain. They left out what our founders communicated as the face of James Madison. And further, what George Washington agreed. See, but we have not come to the point where we could address, honestly, the extortion of George and other presidents still because of this. And James Madison was our fourth president, but he was our first founder. That's what we were told to tell. See, but we have tellings of American history. Most books, it's not just that you're supposed to get a book or research. You're supposed to keep it real. If you have black pupils, whites of eyes, and that's been left out, and you know that, you don't need research. You could use that for research. See, but we have the hyper evidential left out because also the names interbranch. And while it's the difference of that and or the ones on all sides of criminal and civil cases, there are lawyers and it's also people from off the campuses, including on off the courts. On the Ninth Circuit Court next to the World Trade Center towers right before it was hit, there are people that handed in legal papers that had been handed into the Ninth Circuit Court, which is right next to the World Trade Center towers, timely stamped to the court and prepared for they were in the court right next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack. And then we drove home from there. They use names on both sides of that too, attached to fake words and locations, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, not legitimately. As people rolls with all sides of criminal and civil cases through time. Increasingly, there are people I don't know the name of named Smith involved. There's a Jennifer Smith and a Judge Smith who have roles with a Ray Clow and a Joe DeMoro, with people from my grammar school who have roles with body dumping spots and whiting forensics through time, trying to plant fake evidences on people, fake motivations for it. Like so one time a Ray Clow asked me to hold his cup, and then right then a Daryl Chandler said, this was after we graduated. I never saw Daryl Chandler the whole time. When I was a freshman, I don't know. I had a friend in another town. I had a girlfriend in another town. who also the intelligence community who told a whole bunch of lies about me too, indirectly and directly, and with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, various natures of federal criminals before they got caught, as people increasingly involved with mayors and their family members and people tied to them, increasingly demonstrating confessions, recorded roles. They forced my Saudi friend to collusion with them, including Weathersfield and people on off the state education department, people with the Weathersfield's police chief Cintron, people associated with the Bravo network, people associated with CNN. What I say clear and what I say unclear, and other people they lie about what do they believe is clear and what do they believe is unclear. Where how this employs them to have subject treatments that are, and while they're hiding their roles with the people who answer the phones at the networks, that there are roles with the agencies put fake transcripts of people, fake conversations completely, as collusions with people on and off campuses, and the difference of that stacking fake evidences where the difference between the people in the cases and this interbranch, they are all kept that difference still. Black pupils, we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. It's more than just corruption, though. Our founders left us to demonstrate there's a breaching method and roles with a breaching method were left entrenched. In other words, Connecticut interbranch names have been switching names and forging names, who are increasingly people that are roles of names on wire crimes and federal evidence crimes on my street. And as people involved with KKK and black themed increasingly with difference with identity theft, fraud, slaves, planting fake motivations about what they feel regarding that too. I could show you this discern too. These are the ones that roles with predicate acts with facts on campuses with that little fake sides. And these are not legitimate roles with the military. With Justin Klavinskis, he has something. Has some another one of the ones. Heather Hansen and Joe DeMoro too. The corner of the street of Walker Hill and Route 175 or Indoor Wells Road. Another name for it. They changed these. It has something to do with the people changing the names of the street signs, the location of it. Like Bayrock, where it is off of Two Rod Highway now, has something to do with a whole bunch of people involved with time identity theft, fraud, slanders through time. Then make it look like you're part of their volume. And with the conjunctions to that, that's one of the conjunctions to Route 3. So conjunctions to Route 3 and to that are involved. Route 3 goes right by the state judicial branch offices. And there's a Eric Oliveri at right before you go on the bridge at the associated with a whole bunch of people that know my name, I don't know their name, associated with the house at the corner of the street of right there on Route 3, where it's about right before it goes over the bridge. Now these are the people on Trinity College involved with the principal child defender and mayor's involvements and medical families, including police forms, intelligence, foreign and domestic. They have roles with spots next to the Harvard Hospital through time with overt criminal enterprises, plural, and private ones, and with the names involved next to the campuses, with Aiello's Kitchen and Tomorrow's Market that used to be there, and where it is now. These are people involved with Mayor Gold and their family members and other mayors increasingly involved, planting it with names that planted evidences on all sides of my house and on all sides of their house in relative ways. Because this is also people that you do this. What is manifest now? This used already remotely all voices at all locations /s, black pupils. So there are live progressions right onto your spots everywhere you are, anywhere the species body is. The species body of individual bodies. Group difference /s is also hyper simultaneously. They left it out the relativity of it with this too. So not integrity spoke for science slash S. And we can discern that people who have been putting New York City's kids in jail, let alone adults too, after they've been pretending to care against crimes, while they've been predicate acts with facts, methods, roles, needs, and natures of collusion slash S, right where there could only be counters. See, think about how sick the breaching method was with those particular sets of laws. They had sickly distinctly north and south through different countries, but sickly non-distinctly too. And at the time, I learned that in notes at Central Connecticut State University. The houses, even though it was before cars and all that, where they designed this design for the suburbs, they wanted to have it safer and they could build better then. They tactically denatured nature. It was not just because that it was for travel, they had to put industries on the water. In other words, it's all for one for all. And with the economics, before we had the Constitution on the bridge grounded through presidents. We can't get it through presidents till we have locations, areas, and states addressed how they are used remotely, criminally, foreign influenced. And or the leaders are just writing, that difference still. If they try to counter that, the locations, areas, states will force, trick, or persuade leaders to where it's relative, they could be evil. You guys keep leaving out the premises. In other words, there were remote uses of the names associated with the world wars per that breaching method, which did this in semi-ancient times. Demonstrably, it assigned uses of names self-defended as systems tactical ulterior from the one that has nature, all names about nature's identity. All the parts of your body are about your body's complete identity. And your body's complete identity is in semi-nature relationship to its. Not and through the species volume slash S. Because where and how it shows us where it is making more of itself. The identity of forever nature that English was revealed to be taught it. It is more probable that the ancients referred to the period as the point of real possession, and they referred to the comma as the shadow of possession. It is, for example, the possession of two independent clauses is one of the ways you could use a colon. But you're not supposed to separate two independent clauses with a comma. If you have an independent clause and a dependent clause, that's when one should use a semicolon. It's not a complete sentence, an independent clause. I mean, you could just put a period at the end of an independent clause. But there are reasons, especially where and how so much is intertwined in that being and having been denied so long. So boxing is strong. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they're about fighting, but by the rules. But they are abridged. So we're supposed to reveal the nature shows this. They share their relativity to grappling. Wrestling is all grappling. Martial arts is mixed grappling. This is also set up for a good joke for comedy routine. And what also makes a good joke slash S, is the difference between making hyper positive out of negatives or positive, just making positive out of negative. This preaching method assigned each of the sciences roles, keeping blamed on other things, others, or selves. Things that the breaching method caused historically, things that the breaching method causes actively and increasingly. One of the ways they get away with this are the intelligence families, foreign and domestic. They're shown to get away with pretending to be about pretending to be integrity, even though there were all these evidences, hyper evidential proofs that they're not integrity. Same thing with the overt criminal enterprises. Where there are exceptions, that could have been used to make them integrity anyway with just one voice of integrity. But see, we have to deal with what came first properly. So, because that's one of the things that they do, and how they knew little kids would have means to demonstrate. Nature demonstrates to suburban kids, for example, but also non-distinctly, that the human volume was impositioned upon. Individually grouped and together, Native Americans had that same imposition that is still upon us, upon them, sustained. The foundation of the suits and ties, counters, and exceptions who had no credibility but pretended any other, and they used examples like wars, leaving out, not just leaving out, but leaving out exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs them to all the answers. In other words, you describing the uses of the science's names, tactical terror, from how nature shows us to use the science's names. Individually grouped and together. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. So boxing, martial arts, half grappling, half striking. Boxing, it's mostly striking, but to an extent you can't help grappling. Can't help tangling. You know what I'm saying? And nature simultaneously is more finite than the smallest. It is the order of the finite simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly. Not just simultaneously, but hyper simultaneously. One of the things that when you consider the species body as a simultaneous nature, the individual is a sequence nature, relative. And we're simultaneously, we consider the species body as a sequence nature. We are simultaneously a simultaneous nature with it. It's the perfect system that cannot be polluted. In fact, all exceptions, exception nature, come with demonstration /s of the same thing. This is also part of the reason, the answer to the why and how. Could even though nature itself will demonstrate systems that have roles with slavery, it will cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. We're in how it counts, where we are fact-driven nature. Since before our founders were born, the environment has gone downhill. There are worms just from a decade, couple decades, 2, 3 decades, 4 decades ago. And the people then were saying, oh, in other words, how much better than nature used to be. I saw on YouTube somewhere there was a type of banana that went extinct, and it used to taste better. See, nature shows us how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, individually grouped and together simultaneous, otherwise to discern if it's a criminal insidious nature or positive. See, but the reason we have phrases like criminal insidiousness or criminal foreign influences left out is because this breaching method effectively employed others and or selves blamed for things that it caused historically that and it's still causing relative to it. It knew that the value of that would increasingly be a value to identities of science's names that are a certain type of victim slash hyper victim. Predator the same way, victim predator slash hyper predator. Where and how it counts. Where and how someone could only speak for themselves. And where they get us to speak for ourselves, they're fabricating and changing what's communicated, putting whole fake transcripts. The agencies, the courts, they have collusions with this. Then other patients lying about what motivated them to that stuff. Before the World Trade Center attack, the medical, in other words, increasingly we have to address how all ages, there are fire campuses and there are medical campuses. And there are increasingly real estate agencies too associated with the name Dillon. And a Keller Williams was repeated roles with the intelligence community on and owner of family and the family members of the owner of a apartment building on Covington Street, involved with people involved with child abuses, also with judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic medical families, like one's named Leahy, who have been planting evidences with people from my street and tied to them. Since with people that don't even live here anymore, people with the name D. Simone and O'Brien are some of the names the Hartford Hospital people brought up with this. And they did it through the mail, pretending they had conversations with me. And they have people with the name Lombardo too. And I don't know other names. People with the Parks and Recreation have roles with police forums where they have unmarked police forms who they've been fabricating evidences and identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations, planting time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people increasingly tied to bodybuilding spots. Has something to do with their roles with the Weathersfield Community Center too. So I don't know what Joshua Stryker said, but he's one of the names that a Dean Alford recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with others. Where our roles planting evidences on my street, also with people with the name Smith and a Judge Smith and a Judge Killian and other judges before them. And there's a judge, I forgot her name, but there's a Connecticut District Court and the newspaper location next to it. And these are people with the social media of the town offices, of the courts, etc. These are all were people that are ducking behind who's guilty of what, and they're asking questions. As intelligence community is supposed to explain, humanity is united because we are a species body of volume, and the Constitution unabridged appreciates that. Humanity is independent. America's independent because we're supposed to get independent, but we have not been independent because we have not addressed the extortion of George Washington. And people want to have nature debates. They have readings of statutes with Russians and a police chief Centron's lawyer involved with readings of statutes that give the benefit of the doubt to people at the last second based on their title. They've been using this to plant, and since founding, evidences, lying about what they actually communicated, lying about the significance of their collusions and sequence treatments at locations, increasingly making up evidences as collusions with way worse. So even if somehow, because demonstrably, somehow, our founders and George Washington had to employ this North and South as unconnected bodies to be a body out of nowhere. Otherwise, they were all going to get in trouble together. Then it made them that body. Then it made them fight with themselves to get the rest of the entrenchments out. To start the process of getting the rest of the entrenchments out. Made them fight about slavery, where there were still roles with the entrenched North and South. And that has not gone away, black pupils. See the people stacking in New York City. So we're going to address this. You guys follow mandated law for the World Trade Center. World Trade Center has rules with psychology, tactically delusions, raw, attaching people to fake drugs and alcohol with people that work for them who've been trying to play a fake, make it look like people are drinking and stuff like that from the youngest ages, lying about their motivations from it. Increasingly, people, even before, in other words, increasingly people from other campuses too. They're putting fake make motivations. These are increased people. In other words, they're leaving out the foreign names with our interbranch switching and forging names. So I had no conversations with the Leahy family that pretended I had conversations with them or anyone else ever. I never had a conversation with anybody ever about police surveilling my family. They were saying I was just talking about that in legal cases where they have rules with federal crimes, with federal criminals in those cases and their family members before they got caught, like people with the name John LeConte, um, a Joey Quest, people that share that name with the Weathersfield Police, forging and switching names with Los Salitos and people associated with other people that are associated with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso. Also involved with them at spots next to the campuses in Hartford and Weathersfield, next to the state judicial branch, next to the state corrections office, the same ones. Involved with wire crimes and Weathersfield police, forging and switching names with state police, FBI, CIA family members of theirs too, intimate ties. People associated with judges and their family members, prosecutors and family members, increasingly planting evidences and fake motivations of how they even know people's names and what they think. So it's important too because they have more religious spots rules with what's actually and with more child abusers I caught. There were school resource officers and their family members. Increasingly on off all the corners along the South Street Highway. And in that corner of town South Street Highway and Town Line Drive in those shopping centers have people that I never even saw in the shopping center. They try to make fake exceptions where and how they pretend people lie. In other words, and these are people increasingly with Sandy Hook campuses and intelligence community, with courts too. People on the state judicial branch office planting evidences there, fake motivations, with a whole bunch of other countries. People from Pakistan, also increasingly involved with psychiatry, Harvard Hospital with drugs, medicines, crimes, alcohol crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences, crimes with the transition, sales of businesses. Increasingly, the mobile gas station has someone they said is named Wally. I never met him. In other words, they try to make a fake exception, but I never had a conversation with him. I don't know him. He does not know me. Someone was to influence him to pretend other with some people that switched their nationality and begged me to make these confessions. I brought up the thing about because there are movie directors and there are each of the sciences. I see Central Connecticut State University, other UConn. They have roles with the intelligence community. They have roles interstates and foreign with a whole bunch of different countries. And those countries have been here a long time together. And they've been using subject treatments like addiction, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Because they have those databases where they've been putting fake transcripts, fake evidences, increasingly as collusions with all locations, even worse, where used remotely are named on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the interbrand or the interbranch. And they're attaching everyone to faked and changed words, increasingly from off those locations. So they have Judge Napolitano's Facebook page in collusion with Fox News before they fired him. I brought this up, how it was recorded. Fox News has people with their phones and the phone companies in the buildings next to them, increasingly involved with people with wire crimes and federal evidences crimes with the lawyers too, with names on my street as collusions with them from other locations. And their teachers are increasingly involved with it. These are people increasingly from Washington, D.C., involved with crimes with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. And uses remotely of the differences of people where they have those readings of statutes that they're using to duck behind because all our different countries. The reason we have improper relations, bad relations, are relations that are good, and the difference of that is also exploited. Black pupils, we have same color eyes, different color eyes. They can't afford to have what how nature uses difference with communications to be discerned. Now one has learned. On a mass scale, they pretend not to understand people for where and how. The relativity of what Vladimir Putin was speaking about at the beginning of his communications with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson has people from Trinity College, well, increasingly involved with Russians with the name Ayala. People from my campus, I never had a class with people who went to classes I had with, have people with NASA and involved with Russia, and the same names are involved with Korea, and people with UConn. UConn has people with the name Violet, involved with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin and intermilitary, and people involved with secret services at Central Connecticut State University and military police who are also KKK themed and black themed. And they've been identified have fraud slanders, putting fake motivations for it. It has something to do with their roles with the buildings next to the state capitol and next to WFSB and Fox Connecticut News. There are proofs that also these are people also recorded too, not just proofs. Were involved with the New Haven FBI and everywhere the FBI is used. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. So Hartford Hospital has a whole bunch of people that pretend to fake conversations with me, fake transcripts, and about various natures of federal criminals who are also involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants with that act, with those predicate acts, and involved with predicate acts on my street with people with the name Dylan and tied to them. And they're trying to make it personal between the people they're talking to. The Dillon family and others taking pictures of my neighbor's house are involved with harassment to them, and the difference of that too. They're putting fake motivations because they were hyper foreign, never stopped being involved. A bunch of people with the name Demaro from Italy and tied to them, and then they have roles with the name Kalala with medical locations. They're putting fake transcripts, and they're doing that also on campuses with their teachers too. Wire crime acts and methods, whole fake conversations too. So we address this. They're pretending things that, and they're pretending to perceive it like they're looking at stuff and trying to see who's telling the truth. They're collusions. So they're also leaking this way. New Britain Superior Court, Hartford courts have rules with the house on the corner of Park Street and New Park Avenue with foreign and domestic military. They forced Saudis collusions with them leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that attack context. And since they also have an officer who says his name is Hunter, or they said his name is Hunter. It was unclear on the on a police report for a radio too loud on Park Street, right near Trinity College. So he has roles with people that before and after the World Trade Center, also people on Farmington Avenue involved with the intelligence committee with former director of FBI Robert Luskin and his lawyer. These are also people on of the state of correction, of the state capitol and the Harriet Beecher Stowe Mark Twain House on a number of levels too historically, where that was used to measure and maintain self-valued roles with where and how the breaching method designed, again, the suburbs. And Hartford as a suburban slash urban, where and how it was using this design throughout our founders' lifetimes, and therefore throughout our presidents' lifetimes, hyper additionally, because there was a difference between our founders and the pres and our presidents. And our founders were also divided three ways, but they were forced to be unity. Native Americans as one-third of our founders as an individual by themselves, individually grouped and together. That's one-third of our founders. The grouping of them and with our other founders, that's who had to count that's another portion of them. In other words, and the other founders who had to be counter extorted by our founders That was only enabled too by the Native Americans. In other words, the damage control method and long term on a bridge that never came. In other words, get the Constitution unabridged. We have rights that are too numerous to list, and we have the obligations to tell on the predicate actual facts rules, fake justice. So increasingly, the Sandy Hook has campuses in the intelligence community, including at different cities, intercities, non-off crime scenes, and body dumping spots. People that work at Sandy Hook's prison. There's a prison in Newtown, Connecticut. Is increasingly involved with names on off the state capitol. Involved also with ad placements, including on YouTube with Sandy Hook. Promise has roles with more upskirt pictures with a principal child offender, and people with more guns crimes with the kids, and pretending others simultaneously on Facebook with the ones involved with other natures of organized crimes with kids and child offenders more. The like Joella is one of the names on Facebook who's also involved on off parks planting evidences with mayors and foreign and domestic families involved with body dumping spots and delusions, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations for it, and federal evidence is crimes. These are increasingly people involved with federal crimes directly and indirectly with the codependence of former director of the FBI Robert Luskin in a 2006 case, and their roles with names on off of the World Trade Center and the spots next to it, short term leading up to it and long term leading up to it, as ones who forced Saudis to collusions with increasingly with people tied to a Ray Reynolds, a Mike Pandolf. A Ray Reynolds was in my kindergarten class, and they made a fake exception of me knowing him. It has something to do with he said he had a plane that would fly into space, and it broke. Someone broke it, and I told him he was lying, and he brought it in, and I glued it for him and gave it back to him and never talked to him again. Then, in other words, they tried to make it fake, make it look like I communicated with him to go to Vermont. That he's involved with recorded. Wethersfield police were already involved with wire crime action methods with him, with a Joe DeMoro too, and people that were in other classes at other schools I didn't go to with him, who were planting evidences with him, also with sequence ships. Ray Reynolds came in. In other words, people increasingly tied to that campus and houses next to it. Like a Joe DeMoro lived next to that campus. I never saw him on that campus. I went there in Grams and kindergarten. Joe DeMoro is one of the ones tied to the Ray Reynolds and the former director of the FBI's co-defendants who wire crimes in Wethersfield Police. Federal evidence is crimes with them. And judges, one's named Smith, and one's with also transsexual community next to Trinity College. Has roles with people with the KKK themed, the black themed, and their sexual group, where they're forging names and switching names with the courts, who have been preventing writing since I was a kid, as the ones involved with their teachers too, since I was a kid, putting fake things in databases with medical community too, attaching little kids and their families to fake conversations with themselves, fake ties to themselves, fake mental competence, fake estimations of other people's mental competence. Also, while tactically delusions wrought regarding what they choose to evaluate that with, and all their timing treatments. So, in other words, please have mandated law followed for Fox News, Judge Napolitano. And please do it for yourselves, Fox News. Also, the transition of who is responsible when. Like, in other words, the sale of mobile gas station, real or made up, is a federal crime. To bring that into the other things, it's federal crimes to lie about. And everyone's speaking through other people. So it has something to do. And I don't know the woman's name from Central Connect from Trinity College, but I know they lied to one or more people named Elizabeth at Trinity College about me with her as one of the ones with the former director of the FBI who's been planting evidences there. They pretended I sent a letter on campuses They attached me to fake ties to people on campus on Central Connecticut State University too, with the same military families involved. And Eric Burgess is one of the ones with the Hartford courts family members and the Britain courts family members and people involved with the intelligence community next to Central Connecticut State University, next to Trinity Connect College, who have had connections to themselves through time. But they've also been involved with federal evidences, crimes, talking about fake things tied to that with people on my street in Weathersfield that used to live here, who are involved with wire crimes with various police departments, who also got brought up in these fake conversations with me. Well, a whole bunch of people ran in when I caught them with this Kevin Dillon and the people tied to the Great Cololo and the Jonathan Maiano and the people on all sides of Hartford Hospital too, increasingly involved with the work criminal enterprises, private ones, as their roles with names with the planting evidences with them on and up with names on and off campuses. Then they run in a whole bunch of fire departments, families involved with identity fraud, federal evidences crimes. Then they pretend we responded to their loaded statements and not even questions. No, in other words, increasingly they have roles with banks still, criminally foreign influence at per the location uses /S uses, like the shopping centers and malls. So please follow mandated law. For Weathersfield, increasingly involved with the Britain campuses too. Follow mandated law for your schools, intercities, Connecticut. Rocky Hill campuses also have roles further with this. Names involved with the Weathersfield campuses and the police forms of them. And the military, identity theft, fraud, slanders. They should fear God, get on paper to hide and plot. In other words, so the military says they have roles with names on Gooseberry Street. They recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirm this. Also, as the people involved with the O'Brien family and Whiting Forensics and Newtown, Connecticut, for increasingly involved with people with the name O'Brien and the various police departments. Now, these are people that pretend to have had conversations about police equipment and about federal cases. And police swear, surveilling me and others. So these are people that are starting fights between people. And they have been using investigators remotely this way. That is manifest with where and how they pretend. They even still motivated to pretend. They even have the audacity to still pretend that they believe that democracy or voting is a value. Well, it is not. They have obligations to explain how a breaching method assigned our names to be unity and or to be independence, tactical terror, for what could entertain that and afford to be, let alone to protract the short words to define independence and or unity properly. So we could take control of the country's means. So Hartford Connecticut only has like 350 streets, might be 550. And they're stealing millions of dollars a day under the guise of healthcare. It's not even healthcare. In other words, they're creating fake mental conditions, fake physical. They're putting, even faked all kinds of scams at once. And the difference between the motivations, because they're hiding their roles with the foreign bodies, increasing the ones at Hartford Hospital, are no roles with names that have been planting evidences intercities, identity theft, fraud, slanders. They hide the roles of our foreign names involved with Joe DeMoro called me on their phone sometimes when I was a kid. I recorded them, showed him, and they hid that from him, trying to make it look like they have conversations with girls, and they call on the phone and pretend like I knew him as a friend. In other words, they're planting evidences with their girlfriends. I don't even know. And there's Eric Jensen too. He's got his girlfriend involved with people on 2L Highway, Hang Dog Lane, with a former Mayor Gold and state police along the Berlin Turnpike, involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, people from Venezuela, people from Puerto Rico, people from Italy, people from Korea, people from Ireland, Central Connecticut State University, Trinity College, the same ones with UConn. You can't get them on paper. They're not following their mandated law. They have to pick one name in sequence too. Have Judge Napolitano pick one name in sequence for his sources, please. Fox News has wire crime acts and methods with their phones, rolls, so you can't call them anymore. They all have to lie about what I said. I was very clear. On a mass scale, they pretend they don't understand people. They should fear God for the fake transcripts involved. And I want them on paper because these are people. WFSB also attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others, and they attached me to fake locations with themselves and with others. About the World Trade Center too, when I caught them with the principal child abuser, and there are more people with upskirt pictures then and now involved intercampuses too, and with the leaders of the kids, and the difference of that as the ones involved with the work criminal enterprises, private ones, not legitimately with the acting professors from Central Connecticut State University and the other departments as their roles with the houses on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, increasingly recorded, confessed, demonstrated, and confirmed. Also, as the ones involved with the Weathersfield police switching names and wire crimes, mail crimes, false flag police reports, and with the courts. So, one way reports. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Let's go. New York City. I'll show you how to back. These are people involved with interstates with the abuses of you guys mentally. Watch how they keep pouring names out. They go, he said, she said, and they make people either respond to that or don't, and they're going to lie either way because there are other things being communicated by that. It's going on a mass scale though, but it's the overt criminal enterprises, private one, a whole bunch of intelligence companies at the same time. They make other people, other kids, say bad things about countries because they know their roles with it, and they say bad things about it too because the difference of that is used to black pupils. These are how they. This is an art of making a paper, making strangers look like they know each other, and lying about them, and they're lying about the motivations. They're putting fake exceptions. So the colleges of all ages and natures, the campuses of all ages and natures, campuses. They can't afford to be discerned, to be convictions made proper regarding what is constant and variable, and the relativity of that. So there's the syntax of 1,000 tasks, where there are people who make movies and music involved between the campuses with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and stealing from people affected through others under the guise of them just surveilling others that the FBI has roles with. Also, where there are exploitations of that relative and people, and where the locations are used singularly. Also, since founding, there's a singular human fact, human nature breaching method as a scientific value to answer a whole bunch of questions, to have the answers instead blamed on other things, others, and or on selves. And this has quality aspects in natures manifest with their fact-checking nature that are themselves hyper evidential. So we have to have mandated law followed, but our news companies won't do this because they have roles. Mass evidence crimes, predicate acts with facts, way worse than most of the crimes they report on, including murder. They have roles with this kills and keeps blaming other things other themselves. The worst bodies involvements like that, like the bodies of criminal enterprises themselves. What really most furthers them is effectively involved with where and how the Republicans and the Democrats in the North and South make employments and made employments into and as that breaching method rolls those employments. So we have to address the nature of employments with the nature of debate, still criminally foreign influenced. So these are people with election spot locations. There are also roles with body dumping spots and fake motivations planting. A whole bunch of people tied to the name Cololo and people that went to my grammar school I never had classes with. Tied to my neighbor who I never had a class with my grammar school. And before that, Increasingly, people before that too, they hooked them up with hiding live progressions, and they used to live before they went. They moved in when he was in, when I was in fourth grade. He was in fourth grade, and they moved in from where they lived near, not far from where the state corrections offices is, in those three spots at the end of the Burlington Turnpike. They have something to do with a whole bunch of judges and prosecutors, increasingly a bunch of people from Hartford Hospital with mental health care, people from UConn involved with the houses and businesses next to Hartford Hospital, planting evidences with all sides and cases, and the court's names, planting fake motivations, etc., and the news at the same time, and the people next to the crime scenes, like body dumping spots. The witness protection program is involved too. In other words, a whole bunch of people tied to conversations with a John Scully too, and people that at places that he worked are involved with the intelligence community, and people on out the state corrections offices with the body dumping spot of Billy Grasso and of a Greg Kyler. The murder of a Greg Kyler is involved with people that planting evidence at CCSU and Trinity College, who have also been doing it at other campuses, fake exceptions, etc. As time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the family members of, and as in neighbors of, former director of the FBI's co-defendants in a 2006 district court case, and their roles with the names on all sides of the World Trade Center attack, as the ones involved with the wire crimes of Wethersfield police ongoing, switching names, forging names, and with the state police, foreign and domestic, and interstates too. People with the name Cololo and Zano, increasingly too, with FBI, other agencies planting evidences involved with people tied to them, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with them with medical crimes that way, putting fake things in databases with courts and prosecutors too, all kinds of medical corruption, with people on up the state corrections offices and the prisons themselves, tactically delusions wrought, crimes with their prisoners before they are caught, and since they're keeping them hiding, which I caught them doing on off the serial killer body dumping spot with people tied to other body dumping spots like Billy Grasso's, as roles on off the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices, increasingly on off the state, on off the community center, and roles with Keene Cultural Center with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Please follow mandated law for them and for the mandated and get me off the paid conversations with about the World Trade Center with them and with others that WFSB pretended, and get them onto paper for the principal child abusers' confessions and why they hid what that brought that up and how they planted evidences with child offenders digital too. There are women judges and people that work for the courts who have roles with such crimes, planting evidences with child offenders and pretending others have roles with such by their actions with it. Like people with the Hartford court involved with the Eric Burgess recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed before and after the World Trade Center attack. They were planting evidences intercities with Hartford court's names and people involved with the FBI and other foreign and domestic military, and Dean Judd, also with Central Connecticut State University. They have the deans, they have the people that involved with the board of trustees, the board of education, what the college's host for, etc. The motivations, narratives. The only way to get the answer is to follow mandated law when until someone tells you to, and stop. Just follow mandated law. Get them on paper right now, because we need all the people on paper. They're switching names. They have a Detective Samuda also involved with some KKK black themed, forging names, switching names with the police, male and female too, black, white, female judges involved with the names with this um, Detective Samuda and the FBI Director Luskin, planting evidences with names I've been planting on all sides of my house. Further, on social media, where they have readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, and they left out the relativity of that to the predicate acts with the facts in the databases recorded but uncharged yet. Here, God, get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go, Charlie.